Bim! Guess what? Boris is back. I don't think it's a birthday honour thing he's doing for me. It is my birthday today, 9th of November. But he's doing a briefing. I think it's just coincidence more than anything else. About the COVID situation. Now, news is rife with a vaccine that's kind of done quite well. But look at the numbers of people it's done, and it's very, very few indeed, considering the billions of people there are on the planet. So I'm normally a half full kind of guy, rather than half empty. But I'm like, nah, you're alright, I don't want this thing that you're going to give people. This injection. No, I'll wait. So anyway, we'll just wait and see what happens. It's not started yet. It's due to start at 5, I believe. And we're not quite at 5 yet. Ergo, it's not started yet. It's going to be bluster, bluster, waffle, waffle, waffle. Yeah, the CSP is the Common Sense Party, a party which I launched earlier on this year. Currently got 2 members, I think, me and Toff. Just waiting for the screen to do something, because all I'm looking at the minute is that. So we're not quite ready yet. Something to do with track and trace, possibly. But yeah, this vaccine they've got isn't a cure, so if you get it, you're still in trouble. But if you use the vaccine and you... I don't get the logic of what they're saying, how good it is, but anyway, we'll see what happens. I might eat my words, but I still stand by the situation that I do not think that this is going to end by the 2nd of December, this lockdown and current restrictions. Oh, it's Boz's review of the Series X, so that could be good. He could do an unboxing for us. There we go. Reminds me, where's mine? Reminds me, where's my phone? I don't know. I've left a phone in another room. Bagger and damnation. Bagger and damnation. Bagger, bagger, bagger. Waffle, 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 waffle. Right, it's 2 minutes late. Boris is reliably unreliable, isn't he? His timekeeping isn't the best. And don't get me wrong, my timekeeping's rubbish as well. Boris does seem to have it down to a T. So I got Y's everywhere still. Come on, we can do this, we can do this. Yes, we can. First of all, I'd like to congratulate President-elect Biden on his victory over that idiot Donald Trump. Other people say I look like him, that's ridiculous. I don't look like Donald Trump at all. Bluster, bluster, waffle, waffle, waffle. Bluster, bluster, waffle, waffle, bluster. Oh, there you go. It's changed to that screen. Oh, it's gone back to that one. Don't forget to like, share, etc. Bluster, bluster, waffle, waffle, Boris. Come on. You did one last week, which I did. Like I said, I did one today on my birthday, which is nice. Bluster, waffle, waffle, bluster, waffle. Bluster, bluster, waffle, waffle. Thank you for wishing me a happy birthday. That's very kind. Still digesting my birthday lunch. No, mid-afternoon meal. Oh, here we go. We're off. We're off. Oh, army. He's got the army there. Oh my god. Oh, not again.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the latest COVID press conference. I'm delighted to be joined this evening by Brigadier Joe Fossey and by Jonathan Van Tam, the Deputy Chief.
Right. Why is it always out of sync?
And these findings also need to be peer.
Thank you, Mr. Gassax.
We've cleared one significant hurdle, but there are several more to go before we know the vaccine can be used. What I can say is that if and when this vaccine is approved, we in this country will be ready to start using it. Earlier this year, the UK government ordered 40 million doses of the Pfizer vaccine, enough for about a third of the population, since you need 2 doses each. And that puts us towards the front of the international pack on a per capita basis. And I should add that we've ordered over 300 million doses from 5 other vaccine candidates as well. If the Pfizer vaccine passes all the rigorous safety checks and is proved to be effective, then we will begin a UK-wide NHS-led programme of vaccine distribution. We will decide the order in which people are offered the vaccination, taking account of recommendations from a group of scientific experts, the Joint Committee on Vaccination and Immunisation. And they're looking at a range of factors, including the different characteristics of different types of vaccines, to work out the most effective way to protect as many people as possible and save as many lives as we can. And we'll be setting out more detail about that in due course. But, and you know I'm going to say this, I must stress that these are very, very early days. We've talked for a long time, or I have, about the distant bugle of the scientific cavalry coming over the brow of the hill. I can tell you that tonight that toot of that bugle is louder, but it's still some way
Another guide on the news earlier on said
absolutely cannot rely on this news.
The voice saying there's light at the end of the tunnel.
And the biggest
We're
mistake
still in the tunnel,
we could make,
and we can just about make a pinprick of light ahead of us.
Our
So that's another
resolve
analogy.
at a critical moment, because on Friday,
Not yet.
Sage reported
But what
that
we're
the
doing
R
later.
is above 1 in England, though that doesn't take account of the current national restrictions. Alas, the death figures are rising, running at an average of 300 a day, sadly double where they were 24 days ago. The number of COVID patients in hospital has risen to from just over 10,000 2 weeks ago to nearly 13,000 on the 5th of November, and we're heading towards the levels of the previous peak. Irrespective of whether there is a vaccine on the way or not, we must continue to do everything possible right now to bring the R down. And that's why we hope and believe that mass testing will help. And our first pilot began in Liverpool on Friday in partnership with Liverpool City Council. We've tested thousands of people there, but there's still a lot more to do. So please, if you are in Liverpool, get yourself along to a testing centre. There are 19 at the moment, with more still to come. And the more people get tested, the better we can protect that great city and drive the disease down in Liverpool. So do it for your friends, for your relatives, for your community. And I want to thank the fantastic support of the Army, of the people of Liverpool, Liverpool City Council, and we're now going further by sending out hundreds of thousands of rapid lateral flow tests to local authorities right across England, and also, of course, to the devolved administrations. We're working with universities to establish as soon as possible similar mass testing capacity for students up and down the country. But while we're making progress, this project is still in its infancy, and neither mass testing nor progress on vaccines, though they're both vital arrows in our epidemiological quiver. They're both part of the key parts of our fight against COVID. At the present time, they are no substitute for the national restrictions, the social distancing, hand hygiene, and all the rest. So now it's more important than ever to follow the rules. I know it's been a tough first weekend of these autumn restrictions, and I'm especially grateful to the Royal British Legion and all those who worked so hard to ensure that no virus would stop us yesterday from honouring the memory of those who gave their lives for our freedom. But we must get through this to the 2nd of December when these measures expire, and we plan to move forward with a tiered approach. Remember the basics then: hands, face, space, and follow the rules, and that's how together we can protect the NHS, save lives, and get the virus back in its box. That is what we will do.
Back in its box.
Thank you. I'm now going to hand to Brigadier Fossey, who's going to talk about the unrivaled logistical expertise of the British Army that's helping to deliver mass testing to Liverpool. Over to you, Brigadier.
Brigadier.
Thank you, Prime Minister.
And
good evening, everyone. As the Prime Minister said, I am Brigadier Joe Fossey, and I'm coordinating the military support to mass testing in Liverpool. It is a privilege to be invited to help the great city of Liverpool in its hour of need. We're really pleased to be in the city and relish the opportunity to bring our unique planning skills, ability to respond quickly, and logistics know-how to increase the city's own testing capacity. Over 2,000 troops have answered the call to help Liverpool tackle COVID-19 by setting up a number of testing sites in the city. To date, we have established 19 sites, and we are working hard with the authorities to deliver more each day. I should point out that we are working in support of Liverpool City Council, the NHS Clinical Commissioning Group, and the Department for Health and Social Care to prove the concept of rapid testing. We are demonstrating partnership in action and are together in enhancing the city's ability to break the chains of transmission and helping to drive down the number of COVID cases. I want to take a moment to explain to viewers what it is that the military is doing. This is a lateral flow test. And these are the tests that we're using in Liverpool. They are very simple to use. You will all know what a swab looks like.
Yeah.
You will be in an enclosed booth.
Right.
All COVID controls will be in place.
Right.
You put the swab in your mouth.
Right.
And then in your nose.
Ooh.
And give it back to the soldier who will complete the test.
Well, you put it in both. I'd sooner put it that way, I'll be honest.
The new piece of equipment is this 2-inch bit of plastic.
That's more than 2 inches.
It is this lateral
6.
flow device that produces such a speedy result. I have taken one this morning to make sure I was COVID-free. The test returns results within the hour.
I thought it was 15
without
minutes.
the need for it to be sent to a lab. You will receive a message by email or text with your result. These lateral flow tests offer the chance for more regular and rapid testing. Many of us have served on operations abroad. We know what makes an effective team. The Council, the NHS, the emergency services, and most importantly, the people of Liverpool have worked together to make an outstanding coalition. It is a privilege to work alongside them. We're extremely grateful for such a warm response, more so because so many soldiers come from the city region and are excited to be giving something back to their communities. For example, Lance Corporal Lee Johnson of the Royal Electrical and Mechanical Engineers has been out helping his community in Anfield, where today we set up a testing centre in the football stadium. Using his sign language skills, Trooper Jordan Turner of the King's Royal Hussars managed to translate the testing process for a deaf member of the community. And Sapper David Mackenzie of the Royal Engineers has gone from building hospitals for the United Nations in South Sudan to delivering test sites to safeguard the residents of Liverpool. So our message to the people of Liverpool is clear. We are set up
picture doesn't look
and
good. It
ready
looks
for you
like
to
it's
come
been
and get
blown up.
tested. Please do not hesitate. Make the most of this opportunity. What we are trialling now is a possible route out of lockdown and a way to get on with our lives. The armed forces have always answered the call in terms of crisis. COVID-19 poses many challenges and affects us all in many ways. But we in the military stand ready to serve our communities. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Brigadier. I'm now going to go to Jonathan Van Tam just to say a little bit more about the
Oh, he's
vaccines
short,
and
John Van Tam.
the
Look, he's got a
scientific
little plinth
review.
to stand on next to
Thank
the
you,
plinth.
Prime Minister. Good evening. You will all have seen the news today, the announcement by Pfizer-BioNTech, and I have to say that this is really a very important
Tommy Russell.
scientific breakthrough. I'm certain of that. I want to first of all begin to thank people around the world, including here in the UK, who have been clinical trials volunteers. We would not be talking to you about the news today if there weren't volunteers who go into clinical trials to help us find cures and vaccines against this awful disease. And thank you also to the hundreds of thousands of unsung scientists in the vaccine industry who've worked around the clock and are still working around the clock trying to for the world. This is truly appreciated. So today's news is the first vaccine and the first step, and it is very exciting. But I want to explain to you a little bit more about what the next steps are and why right now the message is stand fast rather than get too overexcited about quite where we are. So we've seen today the results that show the effectiveness of the first vaccine. We haven't seen the detail of those, but we've seen the headline results. The next step is to see the safety data, and I imagine that that will come
What happens
in
if
the
this,
next few
this
days.
thing saves you from COVID,
44,000 volunteers
but gets rid of your immune
in the
system for
major
other things
trial
like
being
a common
reported
cold?
today. So 22,000 have had the vaccine. That's a lot of safety data, and we have to see that and understand it.
Yeah, now do we know they won't
Safety
all
is
die in 12
every
months' time?
bit. In fact,
By
I
which
would
time
say
everyone
it's
else has got it
more
and everyone's going to be dead in
important
12 months' time.
than vaccine effectiveness. And the arbiters of safety and effectiveness in this country
Thank you,
are
Tenuous
our
Grip.
MHRA, our regulatory body. And they are truly world class, and they are robustly independent. And so it's for them in time to form their own judgments about this and future vaccines.
Indeed.
They are the only people involved in that. Then, if we can get to a point where vaccines are beginning to be authorised for use in the UK, the next question is, well, who are we going to give them to?
We give them all to the
And here
NHS and there's a
again, an
problem with it. We've got no
independent body,
NHS.
The JCVI, the Joint Committee on Vaccination and Immunisation, will guide the government on the priorities. And you will have seen on the JCVI website that they have already identified a preliminary priority list. It is preliminary because until that committee can see the
Preliminary.
full characteristics of each vaccine, that list cannot be finalised. And it has to take
It
into
takes
account
years to get a vaccine
when
normally, so
vaccines
why
are
have they
likely
managed to
to
do one in
arrive
less than 12 months?
and what kind of
So
conditions
how safe
they
is it going to
need
be long term?
for
They don't know because they've
deployment,
not had it
because
long
they
term.
all have different
Very, very worried about this.
storage and delivery requirements. So that is work for the future. But what is already very clear from the JCVI work to date is that by far and away, age is the biggest priority for patients who most need the vaccines.
That looking over the
and
glasses
need to
look
get
isn't a
those
good look, is it?
vaccines first if they are safe and effective. And so you can expect that the theme of increasing age being the highest priority to be a theme that stays with us as we go on this journey. I'm hopeful, because of all that, but not yet certain, that we could begin to see some vaccine by Christmas. What I want to do now is talk about the slightly broader context of all of this.
Right, so there was
the
43,500
that's
people,
being announced, its results are announced today,
and
targets the
90%
S
were protected from the
protein
virus in
of
28
the
days for having their jabs.
coronavirus. And so
That's
far,
not
all
conclusive.
we knew was that vaccines could give us
Only
antibodies
28
against
days.
the
How
S
did you have to have this
protein.
every 28
We
days?
did not know if vaccines would prevent disease, and so this is a huge milestone. But more importantly, it is good news for many other vaccines to come, because almost all of the vaccines coming also target the S protein. So this is like, getting to the end of a playoff final, it's gone to penalties, the first player goes up, scores the goal. You haven't won the cup yet, but what it does is it tells you that the goalkeeper can be beaten. And that's where we are today, that first sign.
Another analogy.
So what do we know about the vaccine? Well,
So
we
it's about a
know
drinking
this
game.
particular
Every time you say
vaccine
the
prevents
analogy,
disease. That's clear from the effectiveness readout that we've had today. What we don't know yet, and where you have to be patient and stick with us, is that we don't know what this means yet for when we can get life back to normal, when we can start to lift some of the restrictions that we live under. Frankly, we're in the middle of the second wave, and I don't see the vaccine making any difference for the wave we are now in. I'm hopeful that it may prevent future waves, but this one we have to battle through to the end without vaccine.
Well, that's obvious.
We have to keep pressing hard for now. We've seen a swallow, but this is very much not the summer.
All right, wonder where that were going.
Please don't relax. Much depends on the extent to which you continue to follow the rules, not only through the current lockdown period, but afterwards, when we hope to return to a time of slightly lower restrictions. It would be a colossal mistake on the part of any one of us to relax at this point. But vaccine supplies, we hope, will come always subject to authorisation by the MHRA. And if they do, when they do, we might be able to look towards the end of spring for a much better horizon than we have in front of us right now. We will know more in time. Please stick with us for now.
Okay.
Thank you, Prime Minister.
Thank you very much,
No
John.
slides.
Let's go to questions from the public
No
and
slides
the
today.
media, starting
Good.
with Abid from
Can hear me
from
phoning in the
Glasgow.
other room, but I can't get to it.
How will university students get back home for Christmas safely to their family, if permitted, and is it safe to do so? And how will they return safely back on campus in January?
Well, Abid, thank you. I think I'll answer that. Obviously, I'm very grateful to university students for the way they've been able to get the disease down on the campuses where they've been recently. It's been a fantastic effort by universities. Clearly, we don't want young people going back and infecting elderly members of their family over the Christmas period. So tomorrow or very shortly, Abid, we'll be issuing guidance for what they should do. I know that terms will start to end from about the 30th of November onwards, and we'll be sure to be giving guidance for exactly what university students should be doing as they plan their return home, how to make sure that you university students do as much as you can to protect your elderly relatives. Anything you want to add on that, Jonathan?
Thank you, Prime Minister. No, I think I'd just say that I know colleagues are working on a solution for how to get students home as safely as possible. It is a genuinely important question to ask, and I don't think I should comment until the guidance is issued.
Okay, and that guidance will be coming up very soon. Thank you. Let's go to Claire from
Oh,
Coventry.
Claire.
How are you going to address adequately the mental health crisis that has resulted from a year of COVID restrictions? And again, I'll ask Jonathan to comment on the mental health crisis. There's no doubt that this pandemic has had a big impact on people's mental health. I was talking to representatives of the Samaritans this morning in my own constituency in Uxbridge, and it's the loneliness. I think the sense of not being able to see other people that's been caused by some of the lockdown measures. Alas, all sorts of anxieties that people are prone to and have been prone to. What we're doing, Claire, is we're investing massively in mental health. A £13 billion investment in supporting NHS mental health, but also supporting the mental health charities that have been doing such a great job throughout this crisis. But obviously the best thing we can do is bring the crisis to an end as fast as we can, follow the guidance, get through the current period on December the 2nd,
They won't end on December
allow
the 2nd.
things to get better, as I'm sure they will. JVT.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Yeah, there is an enormous mental health burden, and even if not a formal mental health issue, I feel really rubbish about where we are now, feeling that's across the country, because our lives have changed. We can't do the things that we normally do as human beings. We can't interact in the way that we want to. We don't have the nice things like sport on a Saturday afternoon at a stadium and so forth. And it is really tough from that perspective. One of the things that we can do to try and make these restrictions as short as possible is to follow them to the letter. And that means everybody. If we do that, the likelihood of the restrictions working, driving the R below 1 and actually shrinking the size of the epidemic. No matter what happens,
even if we do finish this on the 2nd of December,
months,
we're still going to have another lockdown in January or February or both.
The most important
All we're
thing,
doing is putting off the inevitable. But I don't think it'll end on the 2nd of December, I'll be honest with you.
Thanks very much, Claire. Let's go to Fergus Walsh of the BBC.
Thank you very much, Prime Minister. Question for Jonathan Van Tam. How many people in the UK will need to be immunised with an effective vaccine before life can start returning to normal? And to the Prime Minister, how potentially important are the vaccine results today?
Jonathan.
Yes, so thanks for the question, Fergus. The answer to your question is that it is kind of yes and no. In one sense, we don't know, because the one thing we know about these vaccines at the moment is that they will prevent illness.
Thank you, Chris H.
Due to SARS-CoV-2, due to the COVID-19 virus, as diagnosed by PCR. That's all we know. We do not know yet if these vaccines will prevent asymptomatic infection, and therefore we do not know if these vaccines will prevent virus shedding and therefore have an effect on community transmission. That is something it is not possible to know at this point in time. When we understand more about whether these vaccines simply modify disease or whether they also reduce transmission, then I think we can give you a more sensible estimate of that. But that's the don't know part of the question. The very certain part of the question is that we know that the vast majority of the burden of hospitalisation and death is being driven by the elderly, and that hospitalisation rates rise very dramatically after the age of 50. And knowing that gives us hope that if we can deploy in due course, when authorised, a safe and effective vaccine in the elderly populations, we should, I am hopeful, the proof will be in the pudding, but I'm hopeful that we will actually see a very dramatic decline in the burden in hospitals. But that can't happen all at once. We don't have the vaccine supplies yet. They are not authorised yet. They will not all come in one go.
That's true.
And when they do, even with enormous planning from the NHS, it is going to take time to roll that kind of programme out. But it does explain why the published JCVI advice begins with the top priority group, older adults resident in care homes and care home workers. Next, all those aged 80 years of over and health and social care workers. Next, all those 75 years and over, following on 70, 65. It's on the JCVI website. I won't take up time. I'm sure you've seen it anyway. But that explains why we are planning, when we have authorised vaccines, to start in this way if we possibly can. Thank you, Prime Minister.
Thanks, Jonathan. Fergus, when I've talked about the 3 scientific tools that I think are going to be most useful in defeating this virus, the weapons that we have at our disposal, I've talked a lot in the last few weeks about better therapies, better medicine, dexamethasone, other treatments that are reducing the mortality rates in
That's the other problem we've got. People are not dying as quick now in hospitals, so the hospitals
here
are
to
staying
talk
full
about
because people are
the
living
mass
longer.
testing that we're rolling out, which I think is full of potential for our ability to defeat the virus. But when it's come to the vaccine, the third part of the third pillar of the tripod, as it were, I've always been quite cautious because it's a long time since SARS broke out and we still don't have an effective vaccine against SARS. So I've been very, very hesitant to get people's hopes up, Fergus, unnecessarily. So I'm listening very carefully to what Jonathan and others are saying about the potential of this news. It's obviously potentially very, very good news, but there are still a lot of hurdles that need to be overcome before we can be certain about the efficacy of this vaccine, exactly how it is going to work. What I can tell you, obviously, is that we've secured a large proportion of the supply that Pfizer will be making, in addition to the 300 million other doses of other types of vaccine that we've also secured, if they come good. And I think one of the interesting things that the most fascinating thing that Jonathan has said, to my mind, this evening, is that this vaccine offers a ray of hope for all those other vaccines if it really works, because it targets the S protein of coronavirus. It doesn't just create antibodies, and that seems to me to be very, very interesting. But it is crucial that we do not overdo it. We cannot let our enthusiasm tonight run away with us, folks. I'm very, very sorry to say this. It's more vital than ever now that we follow the basics, that we wait and see whether this vaccine lives up to its promise.
It hasn't got any side
we
effects.
continue with the measures we have in place
for example,
until December the 2nd,
and then,
when
we
they
don't have
will
COVID anymore. Now we have
expire.
werewolves
We continue
running
with
around
the basic guidance, as Jonathan says. Let's go to Tom Clark of ITV.
Who?
Thank you, Prime Minister. Going back to the vaccine again, one of the hurdles, of course, is ensuring we get a supply. That you rightly mentioned, we've ordered, I think, 40 million doses.
Is that a new thing there? Be alert on exit.
UK. How confident are you, given the global excitement about
Thanks,
this
Chris H. You have a good one too.
Today,
well, not a
that
birthday
you can
tea.
fulfil those contracts, that they'll actually be
See you later.
delivered upon? And a second thought, one of the government's leading advisors on the science of COVID today, sounding very enthusiastic, things could return to normal as early as next spring. You don't seem to share that enthusiasm. Have you been burned, perhaps, by your experience working with scientists in the area of testing, for example?
Tom, I think on your first point about the security of the supply, I'm very hopeful that we'll get, as I say, the ones that we've ordered. That's what we've done, and I thank the vaccine task force for their initiative. They've been out securing supplies for the UK for a long time now, and it's right that they've been doing that just on a speculative basis. And look, I mean, yes, of course, I remain, buoyantly optimistic about the prospects of this country next year. I just don't want to let people run away with the idea that this
He's been burnt by saying we're going to have
development today
we've got
is necessarily
Brexit's oven ready.
home run, a
We've
slam
got
dunk,
track and
a
trace
shot to
that'll
the
be
back of
ready
the
on the
net.
31st of May.
I think
we're going to have normal
how,
Christmas, and none of it's happened.
I feel about it. I think we've got a way to go.
I think he's learnt his lesson.
Is it
It's
good
like,
news? Of course,
yeah,
it's good news. But
let's
there's
be cautious
a long
about
way.
this.
A long way, I'm afraid, before we've got this thing beat.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. Making
It's all right,
vaccines
Boris.
is
You're
really
doing more
difficult.
important work here.
And many things can go wrong during manufacture. And indeed, each batch has to be quality assured before it can be released. It's not a case of you get the authorization from the regulator and then, hey ho, you can just start making it. No. Every single batch has to be quality assured and released.
I kind of like this
Things
guy. He's kind of growing on me a little bit.
And have always gone wrong in that quality assurance process for perfectly good reasons. And for that reason, I think we have to be optimistic, but we have to wait and see how vaccine manufacture goes, not only for this company, but for many others. This to me is like a train journey.
Here we go.
Where you're standing on the station, it's wet, it's windy, it's horrible, and 2 miles down the tracks, 2 lights appear, and it's the train.
Yeah.
And it's a long way off. We're at that point at the moment.
Right.
That's the efficacy.
That's the fourth
result.
analogy.
Then we hope the train slows down safely to get into the station. That's the safety data. And then the train stops. And at that point, the doors don't open. The guard has to make sure it's safe to open the doors. That's the MHRA. That's the regulator. And when the doors open, I hope there's not an unholy scramble for the seats. The JCVI has very clearly said which people are going to need the seats most, and they are the ones who should get on the train first. That's how we have to frame this. And right now, it's a couple of miles down the tracks, and we've just seen the lights come round the bend.
Thanks very, very much, Tom. Let's
Tom's
go
like,
to
what the hell was
Victoria
that?
McDonald of Channel 4.
Channel 4. Oh, look.
Thank you,
Socially
Prime
distant.
Minister.
I've got no one in my house,
you
look.
read out the list, Professor Van Tam, on the priorities.
Is that a
You
house
said
or a
they were
studio? That's a
preliminary,
weird
but given
house.
the Prime Minister's determination to keep schools and universities
But why would you have a
open,
lamp
is it not
in the
a
studio?
glaring missing from that list? Should there be teachers on that list? And also, can you tell me, Prime Minister, would the Cabinet get a priority for being vaccinated? And can I also ask, given that you started, Prime Minister, talking about the death figures and the R number, where on a scale of 1 to 10 are you in your confidence that you will be able to lift the England's lockdown on December the 2nd?
Well, brilliant, Vic. Well, thanks very much, Victoria. On your first question about who gets it, which categories of people, we will be guided very much by the Joint Committee on Vaccination and Immunisation. I think you've got to look at where the doses can be most appropriately distributed to protect people, to save life, and to drive down the R, and everything flows from that, and that's why I thought that what Jonathan had to say was absolutely right. And on December the 2nd, and where we're going on this, don't forget this package expires on December the 2nd. At the moment, if you ask me for my estimate of how we're doing as a country, well, I think that actually people are really pulling together, and though the R is above 1, and although I'm afraid infection rates are increasing, prevalence is rising certainly across the entire country, and hospitalizations are continuing to increase, I do believe that this package of measures, in combination with the previous efforts will get the R below 1. I've got a lot of confidence, but it depends on all of us doing it together and observing it and not being mentally sidetracked by a sudden surge of optimism about a vaccine. Yes, it's good news, but let's focus on
the here and now,
on what we're doing until December the 2nd.
Focus on the here and now.
Thank you very much. Let's go to Jason Groves of the Daily Mail.
Jason Groves.
Jason.
Thanks, Prime Minister. Surveys suggest
that's soft focus, isn't it?
A quarter of
my eyes have
people
gone.
wouldn't take a vaccine if they were offered one. How concerned are you about misinformation by the sort of anti-vax lobby? You mentioned Liverpool. Is the testing there?
We've got the Zoom. It's like a video now from
And can I ask you
Queen.
quickly on the US election?
She will not. No, we would not let him go.
I don't know
Let
whether
him go.
you've heard
We will not.
Joe
No, we will
Biden
not
yet, but
let him
obviously
go.
you were a friend of President Trump. Would you now advise him to throw in the towel, and will you miss him when he's gone from the international stage?
Jason, first of all, I think the anti-vax argument holds no water. I think people need to remember that in having a vaccination, you're not just protecting yourself, you're protecting anybody who could get infected by you or your family as a vector of the disease. So I hope very much that people won't be listening to those types of arguments. On the US elections, well, I just want to repeat what I've said before, that I really congratulate President-elect Biden and Kamala Harris, who's, I think, going to be the first, I know, is going to be the first ever female vice president of the United States. And yes, this country's had a good relationship with the White House over the last few years, but it's had a good relationship with the White House for many, many years, and I've no doubt that we will continue to have a very, very strong, very close relationship with our American friends. And one thing that is very exciting that you're already seeing from the incoming administration is their willingness to join the UK in the campaign to tackle climate change. And as you know, we're chairing the COP, or hosting, I should say, the COP26 summit in Glasgow next year. And the UK has been leading in calling the first major economy to call for countries to get to net zero carbon emissions by 2050. And suddenly, with the advent of President-elect Biden, we're seeing the US really willing to take a lead too on climate change, which I think is great news. To say nothing of NATO and all sorts of other things. I think there was another question buried in there, Jason, which I've neglected. Have I answered all your questions?
Well, not quite. Just on President Trump, you've congratulated his successor. Is it time for him to throw in the towel?
Oh, I see.
I think just ask quickly about Liverpool as well. Is it?
Oh, yes. Sorry. You did. Sorry.
Is the take up there as high as you need?
Sorry. Thank you. Look, I don't wish to offer any other commentary on the US election. Our friends in America have their processes. Not for me to offer commentary on it. That I, clearly want to congratulate President Biden. What I would say about Liverpool is that
that's the only guy. He's stood next to you.
Yes, it's absolutely true that we want to see more, but don't forget that we're massively increasing the number of testing centres over the course of the next few days. I think I'll hand over to the Brigadier on this. And we're hopeful that more people will take it up. But perhaps I could go to Jonathan first and then to the Brigadier.
Yes, I just wanted to come back in, Jason, on your point about vaccine misinformation. Vaccine misinformation has been out there ever since the first vaccines were made. And it is exactly that, misinformation, and I don't propose we give it any further airtime. But your statistic actually tells me that 75% of people are keen to get a COVID-19 vaccine. And if you look at the staggering likelihood of hospitalisation or death with increasing age and in the elderly, I predict very strongly there will be a very significant demand in the elderly in particular for this vaccine. and ones that follow.
Thanks, Jonathan. Anything to say about Liverpool, Brigadier?
Jason, I think it's important to recognise that this is the 4th day of a pilot programme of a mass testing approach that may be the first in the Western Hemisphere. We've already had a number of thousands of residents of Liverpool City respond
look at those deaths there.
And we anticipate that growing significantly as the message begins to radiate.
You don't get
so I think we will
a
start
test,
to
we'll
see
shoot you.
much more uptake
That's the message.
from a community that is driving forward as an incredibly cohesive team with very, very strong community responses. So that take-up, that footfall, we anticipate to rise very quickly this week.
What's he talking about football
very
for?
much. Let's go to Kate Ferguson of The Sun.
Hey, Kate. Hi.
Thank you, Prime Minister. A question for Professor John Van Tam first. You said you hope Britain could be heading back to normality by next
Stop
spring.
swinging on your chair, that's
what
my
does
job,
normal
thank you.
mean? So will Brits be able to bin their face masks, hug their grannies, kiss their dates again? And for the PM, I know you're working on a plan to rescue Christmas with the devolved assemblies. How confident are you that Brits will be able to travel around the UK for their Christmas dinners this year? And will Brits be able to hug their grannies on Christmas Day?
Thanks, Kate. Look, I'd love to give you a really simple answer to this and say, oh yes, all the things you asked for in what I suppose is an early Christmas list from you, you'll be able
I reckon
to
he
do
walks
by
out the room
Easter.
very
I
professionally.
can't give you that assurance at the moment. What I can tell you is that with time and subject to authorisation by the regulator, once these vaccines begin to be deployed, then over a period of time, they will make a significant difference to the kind of disease levels we see in the UK at the moment.
Right.
Whether they will reduce transmission, as I said earlier in the briefing, is something we do not know yet, and that is a crucial factor that will understand.
But we won't have the
how
vaccine by
far
Christmas, so what he's
vaccines
basically saying
take
is you're
us
screwed, you ain't going to see
towards
your
the
grandma
kind
at
of
Christmas.
future that you aspire to, as I aspire to. We'd love it, wouldn't we? But right now, the key message is we're working on that. We're very aware of
Look how
what is
professional
needed,
she is, writing it
but
down with a
your
pen.
job, whilst we do that work, is to hold this R below zero, below one, for as long as you can, and to work to follow the measures so that we can get into that space in the first instance.
And Kate, just the simplest thing I can do is just repeat what I've said before. The more we comply, the more scrupulously we follow the guidance and the rules right now, the better all of our chances of having a Christmas that's as close to normal as possible. That's the objective.
Yeah, the guy in the middle, yeah.
We're working for. Let's go lastly to Joe Murphy of the Evening Standard.
Oh God.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Professor Van Tam, can I ask you to share a bit more of what you know about the likely time it would take from a first injection of this vaccine
funeral director?
to actually being immunised? For example, if people had their first administration on December the 1st, is it likely or unlikely that they might be able to hug people on Christmas Day? And Prime Minister, if we just looking at your old stamping ground of London, business leaders are saying the COVID rate is going down in London, and it's much lower already than other major cities. They're asking you, would you consider, if it's safe and if the numbers keep falling, whether you'd let London out of lockdown before December the 2nd? And if not, could you at least say that you're willing to put London into tier 1 again so that more things and businesses can stay open?
Yeah, thank you. So it's a very good question, Joe, and I'm really glad you kind of reminded me of it, to be truthful. All but one of the vaccines that are the likely big name contenders over the next 12 months or so have a vaccine that requires 2 doses to give protection. And the interval between the 2 doses varies between 21 and 28 days apart. Now, on basic immunological principles, we would expect the response to a vaccine to be maximal, no more than before the 14, until 14 days has elapsed after the dose. So, yes, there'll be some partial protection after a first dose, one would think, but the safe space is have 2 doses, wait at least 14 days, and at that point, you can be assured that to the extent that your body is going to work with the vaccine to produce antibodies to protect you, that is when you're going to get into the period when you are protected. So I'm afraid I'm saying, to be sure, 14 days after the second dose.
To be sure, to be sure.
And Joe, on London and other areas where we're seeing, the gradient being held down, or the disease not rising as fast as it has been, this is no accident. This is because of the heroic collective efforts and sacrifice the people of London, elsewhere, the northeast. It's flattening. That is because people are following the guidance, making a huge effort to distance themselves and all the other things that we know. And yet, it is still true that overall the virus is still doubling in this country. And I saw the data this morning. Alas, it's doubling in some places faster than elsewhere. About
Can you
1
imagine,
in
though,
90 people
London's
now
on a
have
later
the
thing
virus.
than
One
the
in-
rest
one
of
in
us,
90.
and we all get,
that's a lot of,
all get out of it, and then
people,
London has a
perhaps, and
huge
We're going to
spike.
see those
Can you imagine
cases,
him saying, right, okay, I'll lock
sadly
down
feeding
London, but
through,
nowhere else?
into our hospitals.
They'd be up in
as
arms
they
about
are-
it.
as
Oh, it's
they
got to be
are
the same
now.
as everywhere else. It's got to do everyone. That's what does my head in about people in London.
Does show that human
And the Evening
agency,
Standard.
collective action, all of us pulling together really can work. And what we've got to do now in the run-up to Christmas, run-up to December the 2nd, is to make sure that we do follow this guidance so that, as I say, we can all have as normal a Christmas as possible. Thank you all very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
There we are. That's the Prime Minister's news conference from Downing Street. He said if and when the vaccine is approved, we in the UK will be ready.
Right,
but he said, I must stress that these are early days. We cannot rely on...
Left, turn. So there you go. It's a little bit anticlimactic, wasn't it? See you, Boris. Hope your tea's not cold. Oh, you call it dinner down there, don't you? Hope your dinner's not cold. What to make of that vaccine thing? Like I said before, they've tested it on a few people, but there's billions of people on the planet. So I've no idea how they think that, because it's helped a few thousand people, it's going to help everyone. Plus, they don't know how long it's going to be effective for, because natural stuff, when you have the virus and the antibodies build up in your body naturally, apparently they run out after about 3 to 6 months. And then you could get reinfected again, admitting maybe not as bad as you were the first time, but it can still happen. So what makes you think that this antibody isn't going to do that? I don't know. It's all a bit weird. But anyway. Oh, it's bonkers. It's all bonkers. Everything's bonkers about it. Leave it there though. I think we've said enough and we've been on long enough. 54 minutes. So, yeah. Oh, God's sake. I think it was your best conference today, Boris, definitely. Well done. Rishi will be pleased. So yeah, leave it there. Thanks for watching, indeed you still are. Go and get some birthday drinks now. And they'll do a birthday stream later on tonight when I'm on the gin. Until then,